What's up, guys? It is Kellen here again, and welcome back to MX vs. ATV Legends, actually, today, where we're going to review the 2024 Indianapolis Supercross, talk about a couple things that happened over the weekend, and have a bit of a fun time playing MX vs. ATV Legends. I know some of you out there are going to be like, what? Why is he playing this crappy game? We don't like this, but hey, I like all moto games, and this one has its fun moments as well, and it's also easier for me to play and also talk at the same time, so that's why I'm doing it. But yeah, Indy Supercross over the weekend did not go. Going to be back to going to the races this weekend in Seattle. But it was a really, really kind of awesome night in terms of the Cameron McAdoo situation and perspective, I think. For those of you that don't know, obviously he got hurt last year and missed a lot of the season, and he's been going through a lot of these types of injuries, I feel like, in his career. Not where it's like, I feel like it's not necessarily the same level of Austin Forkner, but he's definitely dealt with his fair share of injuries, and he's been so close to being in title fights and stuff like that over the years that you just feel like at some point it was going to all come together a little bit, and it feels like this year it finally is, and you saw a lot of that, I think, emotion of what this all kind of means to him pour out when he finally won this weekend in Indy. Great podium speech. I mean, one of the best podium speeches we've had all year, I feel like, in terms of who he thanked and his emotions about the sport, and said, I just like riding my dirt bike, and I'm just so happy to be back out here, which I think a lot of us fans can relate to, right? So that was really cool to see. But yeah, just in general, like, it's a feel-good story because it's so nice to have someone, I think, as refreshing as he is with his perspective on the sport and his perspective on riding dirt bikes and what he gets to do for a living, be successful in the sport as well. I feel like oftentimes you get people that it becomes so nonchalant when they win and they get to battle for championships, but I feel like McAdoo's the type of guy that realizes he came from more or less total privateer to factory level team and now has the points lead with 4 rounds to go in this East Championship and a real legit shot at winning it. And to have the perspective that he does on the sport still, I think, is awesome, and that he hasn't gotten kind of like jaded by it or anything like that as well. So yeah, like, I watched this weekend and just was generally happy for him. I always try to be impartial as a journalist, but it was one of those where I think everyone was like, all right, that's cool for Cam. Good on him. Got one. Now is in the winner's circle again. Because it's been over 2 years since he won a race, and as he alluded to in some post-race podcasts and some things like that, like, he knows these wins don't come easy, and he doesn't take them lightly at all when he gets them. So, yeah, I think everybody liked that, right? If you're not a McAdoo fan, I mean, I get it. Like, not everyone has to be a fan of everyone, but I just feel that he is one of those, like, nice guys of the sport, and maybe he doesn't always have the best racing moves or something like that, because he's made a couple people mad with some moments over the years, but I think he's just a good dude, and good dudes should be respected in this sport, I feel like. So I was pretty pumped for him to win, and honestly, I feel like it sets us up for a really fun 250 championship down the stretch, because in some shape or form, it still feels like everyone rolls into the weekend expecting Deegan to be one of the fastest guys, and he kind of proved it, I feel like, in the second main, or the second race of the Triple Crown this weekend in the 250 class. But he hasn't put it all together except for at Arlington, and that was really just because Forkner went down. So is he going to be a guy that could win out and make this title fight that much more interesting because of it? Maybe. He's got 3 weeks to go back and test and figure it out and try to come guns blazing in Foxborough. But either way, we have a really fun title fight with Cameron McAdoo and Tom Vial, separated by 2 points. They were separated by 1. Vial ends up getting second overall on the night, and McAdoo wins, of course. So now they're 2 points apart with McAdoo on the red plate. And again, I think it's two guys that the storyline for both of them would be so interesting if they get this title this year, which is why a lot of people, I think, are pretty happy either way that this one goes. I think, obviously, there's maybe a little bit more excitement around the potential of McAdoo doing it because of his path to it and going through, he was a fill-in at Geico Honda, but he was more or less a privateer starting his career and got some, good rides, and eventually got on PC and started winning, and things just really have come together, whereas Vial obviously is a 2-time MX2 world champion, and path is already kind of laid out in terms of a framework of what he can do, but I think both of them, people are just generally interested to see do well right now, move up to the 450 class, and hopefully make things interesting. So I like that both of them have a pretty fun career path ahead of them based on how things are going. But yeah, I do still think that Deegan has the potential to make this thing interesting, and it seems like a lot of fans hope he does at least, or maybe at this point in time, because of what happened at Birmingham, not everyone's super pumped on Deegan, but I think we all kind of agree that we want to see some good racing down the stretch of this title fight, and Deegan will make it good racing if he can win, Foxborough, or maybe even win the showdown and really tighten up points, which is at Nashville. So I think that those will be really cool storylines to watch in the next couple of weeks. It is interesting how many breaks this 250 East Championship has, because we started at Detroit, then there was a 3-week break, or 3-weekend break actually after Detroit, and then we came back at Arlington, and now we've had 4 rounds in a row, right? We've gone Arlington, Daytona, Birmingham, and now Indy to get through 5 rounds of their series, but now we have another 3-week break before they race again at Foxborough, and then they will do Nashville and Philly, have a weekend off, and then have the showdown at Salt Lake City. And it's, again, kind of interesting because I feel like in the past we would normally see like, oh yeah, you get like almost all the West rounds out of the way, then you do like 7-8 East rounds in a row, finish those West Coast rounds, and then have a showdown. It feels like the East Coast Championship this year has been way more go break, and I'm kind of keen to see if that shifts the momentum after this as well, because now it feels like obviously momentum a little bit on McAdoo and Vial's side, with Vial winning at Daytona and Birmingham and then getting second this weekend. McAdoo going 2-1 in the past few rounds as well. Definitely feels like it's kind of the momentum on their side, like I said, but yeah, maybe things change once we get back to action in a few weeks' time. Either way, fun to see that the 250 title fight really in both classes has been so good, so interesting. Even going back west now, the fight between Jordan Smith, RJ Hampshire, and Levi Kitchen has been really fun to watch in 250 West this year, and I think it's going to be really good in Seattle because that's a curveball for those guys. They've been racing a lot of hard-packed tracks, and now we're going to go to some really soft dirt in Seattle this weekend and maybe have some mixed results. Obviously, it's a Levi Kitchen home race, so you'd expect him to do well there, but that doesn't always guarantee that he's successful. He hasn't necessarily been amazing at Washougal, and he literally lives in Washougal, Washington, so kind of keen to see how that goes. So let's talk about 450s. I'm going to spend pretty much the rest of the video talking about the 450s here. Jett Lawrence becomes the second 450 rider ever to sweep a Triple Crown. Ken Roczen has done it before. Eli Tomac has not, which is amazing given his track record in Triple Crowns. But yeah, now Jett Lawrence has done it. And 21-point lead in the championship. Obviously, there's still 7 rounds to go and anything could happen, but it seems the general sentiment, and I kind of agree with it, is that this is Jett's title to lose now. It very quickly got to that level because I feel like we were 2-3 weeks ago talking about how this title's so close and it could go any way, and series starts at Daytona and stuff like that. But as Lewis Phillips and I discussed on our LVK More Than Moto podcast, we kind of thought maybe series ends at Daytona because Jett really laid the hammer down at Daytona. Then he wins Birmingham. Now he sweeps a Triple Crown in Indy. And he looks about as on top of his game as he's been on a 450 in Supercross. And someone asked me on Twitter, do I think he goes perfect from here? And no, I don't. But I do think we have now crested into the realm of things have got to go really weird for him maybe to not be Supercross champion this year, because now we're already out to a points gap where, not many guys have come from this far back to still win a title. Cooper Webb is 21 back. So Chase Sexton is 26 back, 25 back, something like that. And then Roczen is 35 back. It's a pretty big gap, regardless of which, for all those guys. I just think that this is just to lose. Like I said, he's looked so strong, so solid, and so in control the last few weeks that now he's at the point where he can start to go a little bit on championship mode in terms of management in the 450 class. And it wouldn't really be that hard for him to podium out based on the current status of stuff, because it seemed like Anderson, Plessinger, Tomac to a degree were all much closer a few weeks ago. But this last round was really, in my opinion, Jett, Kenny, and Chase, and then a gap. And it's kind of starting to feel like that might be the way it goes moving forward. Webb will be better at other rounds. This one was a bit of a kind of a fluke luck thing because he was in a good position in the first main, goes down with Cade Clayson, never really gets going after that. Better second and third main results, obviously, than the first because of that crash, but it wasn't like he was really mixing it up with those guys in the same top three in all three main events. Finished top three in all three main events. So, will we see something completely different in Seattle? Maybe. That's a good track in the past for Tomac. It's very ruddy, just like it was at Indy, so I don't know that necessarily changes a whole lot about what we saw this week versus what we'll see next week. I feel like Jett's still going to be really good at Seattle, just the way that he was this week in Indy. But yeah, I don't know. I think at this point you just have to kind of say, okay, Webb has to win Seattle for it to stay reasonably close championship-wise. Otherwise, now we just start rooting for other guys to start getting some wins and making this thing a little bit more fun. Get another Roczen win in there. Maybe Anderson sneaks a win in late. Obviously, people are still waiting for Eli Tomac's first win of the year, and I would have thought a couple weeks ago that it was definitely coming, especially how he rode at Arlington. And I don't know, the last few weeks have just not been very Eli Tomac-ish, I feel like, in terms of his... really, the whole night program, how things have gone for him the last few weeks, because I feel like it hasn't been going forward at all times, Eli Tomac. Daytona was a little bit more so that case late, where he was pushing forward, but this Triple Crown was certainly not. His best main event was his first main event by far of the 3 Triple Crown races. So I just don't see how, in the landscape of what we've seen the last couple of weeks, that suddenly things are going to be way, way different in Seattle. Now, we do have a break after Seattle we have a break after St. Louis, so it goes Seattle, St. Louis, and a break. And getting into the final 5-round stretch after that, things could be different. We saw last year how while Tomac, Webb, and Sexton were starting to kind of battle each other, more faces started to show up. Anderson started to look a little bit better down the stretch. Barsha snuck a win in there. And then obviously everyone kind of got hurt at the end. And I'm not, suggesting that happens again, but that could be the way it plays out, especially if Jett does start going into championship management mode. Again, with 7 rounds to go, theoretically speaking, he could finish second place at every single round except one and still win the title. He'd have to wait one more round, because if Webb sweeps from here and Jett gets second the rest of the way, they would tie, but Webb would have the tiebreaker on most wins of the season, of course. So obviously that's not going to happen. Never happens that way, but that is the math as it's currently working out. And another thing I'm starting to consider as well is Jett has 5 450 Supercross wins already in his rookie season after 10 rounds, and regardless of him potentially becoming the third 450 Supercross rookie to win behind Jeremy McGrath and Ryan Dungey in their rookie season win the title, he's on his way to having one of the best rookie seasons of all time. Obviously, the motocross wins speak for themselves last year, but his hit rate is 50% so far in the 450 class on wins, and he just swept a Triple Crown, and there's 7 rounds to go. Jeremy McGrath has the all-time record for rookie wins in a season, which is 10, and there's 7 rounds to go, and Jett needs 5 to get there. So is it possible? Yeah, absolutely it's possible Jett Lawrence could tie that record, especially the way that things have kind of been going, because he probably should have won Arlington, and then we're looking at 4 wins in a row. Glendale was a way different story. He just didn't really seem to have much going on for him in a positive way until kind of the second half of that main event, I think. But Arlington onward, he's definitely been the class of the field, and you could make a case for why he could win 5 of the next 7. So how high does he get up? I don't know. That's going to be really interesting to watch. I think second on that list, if I remember right, is Dungey. I think he had 7 wins his rookie season. I'm trying to remember if there's another one up there that snuck in. But yeah, either way, it's his title to lose. Like I said, I don't see how you slice it any other way. I'd be curious to know of the current point situation if anybody else thinks anybody other than Cooper Webb still has a shot at this, because Sexton is third and fairly close and right behind Coop, but it's basically a full race distance back on Jett, and that's a pretty big gap to cross over. But is it possible? Yeah. I mean, we've seen crazier things happen in Supercross before, especially with last year, Tomac looking like he had it in the bag and then has the Achilles tear at Denver. But he's going to need some help, I think, at this point, and the help could come in the form of him clicking off a few wins and guys getting between him and Jett, which is certainly possible with the current status of the field still, but going to need, I think, a little bit more help than that even. So, yeah, going to be interesting to see if Sexton kind of starts figuring it out. He still seems to me pretty pissed off after every week, and that's the sentiment that I've heard from others as well a little bit, that he is not happy with himself. It's not necessarily a bike thing. They've obviously been tinkering with some forks and shocks that they are not allowed to talk about, but we all kind of hear that he's on the KYB stuff now, so that's certainly a bit of a change from the normal WP stuff that KTM guys run, and obviously they made a huge adjustment this year going back to the 48 millimeter forks, which Cooper Webb was begging for when he was on that team and never got. So KTM's throwing everything in the kitchen sink at it to make Sexton happy. And, honestly, I really don't feel that you can look at his season, even if he doesn't win this title, as like a failure, because he did get hurt right in the middle of it. He won right away on that bike, and he's been right in the mix. He hasn't been way far off for first year on a brand new machine. And there's still ample opportunity that he sneaks up into second round Webb and makes things a little bit closer. But yeah, anyway, the question is, do you guys think that anyone other than Webb still has a shot at catching and passing Jett for this title? I think the largest points gap we've ever seen someone come back from in history still is 28 points, if I have that math correctly, and that's when Jeff Stanton came back and beat Damon Bradshaw in 1992, and Bradshaw kind of choked it at the end there a little bit, which, hey, you never know. Maybe that's what happens with Jett Lawrence late in this championship, but having seen what he did outdoors, I highly doubt that. Either way, going to be a tall mountain to climb. So yeah, question of the day, does anyone not named Cooper Webb still have a shot at catching Jett? And what do you guys think about Cameron McAdoo getting his first win in over 2 years again, and that awesome podium speech? Such a feel-good story as well. I want to give a quick shout-out to my guy Cody Schock as well, because he's been the talk of the week a little bit. Breaks his collarbone in that crash with Hayden Deegan at Birmingham. We talked about that last week. And then gets it plated, gets it surgery on it, and then comes back to Indianapolis and honestly was just solid again. Like, looked almost as if nothing had changed. I'm trying to remember what he finished overall. May have been a top 5 overall finish, I think, if I have that right. But yeah, like that was awesome to see that turn around in a short amount of time. People are skeptical, but I've seen x-rays as well, as some of the other people have talked about. The x-rays were not good. It was a very nasty, clean, straight-through break, and the bones were kind of sitting on top of each other. But yeah, went and got surgery. Said he hadn't basically ridden once since the crash, and goes out and does that. Awesome. Incredible. 2 feel-good stories on the night. Makes it a pretty fun night in Indy. A little lackluster because the Triple Crown wasn't as fun as it normally is. Definitely a weird stadium to do it at in Indy because the dirt we knew was going to break down there. But they only have so many options. They can't do it in an outdoor stadium in case it rains. Triple Crown in the rain would be horrible, not only for the fans' perspective, but for the teams. And they also like having it at different locations other than like Glendale and Arlington and etc. on repeat, which is why they're doing Anaheim, Indy, and St. Louis this year, just to try to get some different fan bases to be able to see the Triple Crown. So, weird choice. Aaron Plessinger had some choice words for a Triple Crown at Indy after the race. He said that basically solidified that he does not like Triple Crowns because having it at this round was kind of dumb with how the ruts shaped up and how hard it was to pass, but also how gnarly the track was, and having to ride 36 minutes on this track as well was chaotic. So, yeah, interesting choice, but I get why Feld decided to do it and why they're probably going to do something similar to that in the future when they have to switch up the events again and make a decision people probably won't like, but they do it to try to get more of the fans involved and be able to see stuff like that. So, yeah. But that's my thoughts and opinions from Indianapolis here today, chit-chatting about Cameron McAdoo breaking through for his first win in 2 years, Jett Lawrence running away with this 450 championship, and more. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Get in the comment section below and argue with me down there if you have any questions or concerns. And be sure to check out the 2024 Supercross DLC track map pack in MXRS ATV Legends. Really, really fun. Even if you don't like this game, it's still kind of cool to be able to check out these tracks and yeah, play these and have a little bit of fun as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. As always, appreciate you stopping by, and we'll see you in the next one. So long for now.